great British countryside, one of rolling fields of wheat, sugar beet, rapeseed and a plethora of other staple foods. But it wasn't always this agriculture-based heaven. In fact, in 3000 BC, the great British landscape was covered in dense forests, teeming with life. Wolves, lynx and beavers roamed these vast forests. But by 1000 AD, almost all of the forests in the UK were chopped down for agriculture and living space, and only 20% of them remained. Today, 23 million acres, or 70% of the UK landscape, is now covered with arable land and pasture land. But that begs the question, what impact does agriculture have on UK wildlife? A possible way to measure the impact of agriculture is through comparing the biodiversity before and after land has been converted. Biodiversity is the genetic, taxonomic and ecosystem variety of living organisms in a given area, environment or ecosystem. This basically means that a high biodiversity environment will have many different species, many different genes within each species, and many different biomes or habitats within the environment. What we find is that agricultural land has obvious negative impacts on biodiversity, as it cannot hold the range of different species or habitat varieties as something like a forest or a river. So where have all these species gone? Are there refuges for them? And if so, are these refuges being protected?
I'm going to some place where I've never been before.
When we think of the UK countryside, we consider agricultural land to be natural. This is far from the truth. Agricultural land is heavily modified. Over centuries, the natural habitat has been fragmented and degraded to make way for agricultural practices. Ancient hedgerows are one of the last remaining features of natural landscape in the UK. By definition, hedgerows are narrow strips of woody vegetation consisting of shrubs and occasional trees that usually border a field or a road. There are many different varieties of hedgerow. Their structure is ultimately determined by their plant species composition. In England alone, there are 500 vascular plant species that are known to form hedgerows. Some common species include hawthorn, blackthorn, brambles such as blackberries, and many large trees such as oak and hazel. Flora-rich hedgerows are an important habitat for a variety of animal taxa. Their complex physical structure provides shelter for smaller animals, making them suitable nesting sites for birds. They are also an important source of nutrition for foragers, providing food in the form of berries, seeds and leaves. Hedgerows are often referred to as biological corridors, as they are thought to promote connectivity between fragmented habitats. In southern England, hedgerows have been shown to positively affect the movement of bumblebees. By observing flight behaviour, Cranmere found bumblebees were more likely to use linear landscape features, such as hedgerows, to move between connected resource patches. In a subsequent bioassay experiment, they found that the reproductive success of Salvia pratensis was enhanced in patches with greater connectivity. This was a direct result of increased pollinator activity. As well as supporting wildlife, hedgerows provide a number of services to farmers. They are commonly used to form natural barriers on agricultural land. Typically, they mark field boundaries and can also be used to prevent livestock from escaping the field. Hedgerows also benefit farmers by altering local environmental conditions. For example, they have been shown to reduce water and nutrient runoff on farmland. They also act as windbreaks, helping to reduce surface wind speeds. Both reduced surface runoff and reduced wind speed help slow the rate of soil erosion. Clearly, hedgerows are beneficial for both the farmer and local wildlife, which begs the question, why would a farmer want to remove a hedgerow from their land? To understand this, we need to first take a look at the history of agriculture.
So hedgerow abundance just varies massively over time, and in the sort of more modern period, post enclosures, actually hedgerow numbers went up as small fields were implemented. And then in more recent times, probably post the Second World War, certainly post the First World War, we've seen a decrease in hedgerow length in the UK, and the extent to which it's been managed. But that actually turned around in the 90s due to a series of government policies. And then more recently it's tailed off again, but I suspect with the publication of the Committee on Climate Change report about changing agricultural practices, we might see an impetus towards greater hedgerow length and probably more likely an improvement in management practices. So we can even see this hedgerow behind here where it's clearly been allowed to fester over decades. But it may be actually quite an Asian piece of hedgeland. I'm not clear on that.
I'm going where the water tastes like wine.
Similar to hedgerows, ponds are one of the last remaining natural features of the UK countryside. They provide an ideal hotspot for biodiversity and support 2/3 of all freshwater species. Many ponds are man-made, but some have been sculpted by nature. Ranging from 1 to 20,000 square metres, ponds are not connected to any other body of water and are only fed by rainwater or groundwater. Based on a detailed analysis of Ordnance Survey maps, Rackham estimated that around 800,000 ponds existed in England and Wales in the 1880s. According to the Freshwater Habitat Trust, around 50% of the UK's ponds were lost in the 20th century, and 80% of those that still remain are in poor condition. Ponds in the UK alone comprise an important habitat for around 400 species of aquatic plants and close to 150 of the 280 wetland invertebrates listed for conservation value in the UK Red Data Book. Data collected as part of the Lowland Pond Survey in 1986 showed that ponds support a greater number of aquatic macroinvertebrate species and uncommon species with specific conservation interest compared to riverine systems. Moreover, ponds have a wider function other than hosting as an environment for particular organisms. They can be used for mineral extraction, watering livestock, irrigation for agriculture, or as ornamental features. When used sustainably, ponds can be used for irrigation as a source of unrestricted water treatment. An experiment on the use of treated wastewater on crops produces significantly greater plant height, an increase in grain weight, and an increase in thickness of stems, leading to a greater yield.
We've now heard that hedgerows and ponds are a key refuge for wildlife in the UK. They are an interstitial habitat caught between agricultural land and are often referred to as biodiversity corridors. However, are these habitats safe and are they being protected? In the UK, the government has a scheme in place which subsidises farmers to protect, maintain and create habitat for wildlife. This aims to increase biodiversity, improve habitats and woodlands, provide clean water and protect the UK from flooding and coastal erosion. With regards to hedgerows, farmers are paid £9.40 per metre of hedgerow they plant, as well as further payments for maintaining hedgerows and ensuring gaps are filled. This incentive makes protecting hedgerows beneficial to farmers, as well as the environment, as any money lost in yield due to the presence of hedgerows is gained via subsidies, so the farmers do not lose out on any money. The quality of the hedgerows is also taken into account. Hedgerows owned by farmers should not contain a plant that takes up 70% of the total hedgerow. This enables a more diverse plant community to prosper in the hedges and means a wider variety of animals can be supported. Over-competitive or invasive species are also controlled to not smother the hedges and to keep them productive and healthy. However, it's not quite the success story as it sounds. A third of all farmers are not taking any steps into protecting the environment. This has led to many hedgerows being cut down, ponds being drained and waterways becoming polluted by surface runoff. Therefore, it's imperative that people realise the significance of hedgerows and ponds, and the government continues to incentivise farmers to protect them and these biodiversity corridors.
I'm gonna leave the city, got to get away.
Over time, the UK's natural habitats have been massively fragmented and degraded by agricultural practices.
The natural features preserved amongst agricultural land are key in maintaining species diversity. In the UK, hedgerows are a refuge for terrestrial species, whereas ponds and lakes are crucial habitats for aquatic species.
With the ever-increasing demand for food production, how will the UK landscape look in the future?